So Zhiyun was nice enough to send me the Weebill Lab gimbal to test out. I'm not quite ready to do a review, but here is a handy balance guide for the gimbal. We'll do it nice and quick so you can just get out there and start stabilizing your footage. So let's go. The first thing you're gonna do is wait for your 6D Mark II to focus, and then you're gonna screw the tripod feeties into the bottom of the gimbal, and try and do it a little bit more skillfully than I did. I didn't do a very good job. It's like I always say, second time's the charm. Now you can put the gimbal down, take a load off, you know, you do a lot of hard work keeping our camera stable. We're going to talk really quick about the individual axes on the gimbal. So this one is the tilt axis or the pitch axis, this one is the roll axis, and this one is the pan axis. Now one of the things I love about this gimbal is the fact that you can actually lock these axes in place. So while you're balancing it, they're not going to be flopping all over the place like some other gimbals. So to start out, I'm going to just lock these axes in place so that I can start the balancing process. Now we're going to grab our quick release plate. This actually comes in two pieces. You can leave this part mounted on the gimbal and quickly remove the top part of the quick release plate and leave that on your camera. And keep in mind, this quick release plate is actually compatible with Manfrotto tripods, which is wildly convenient. If you have a Manfrotto tripod, I guess. Alright, so next up we're going to grab our camera, and keep in mind, just like all other gimbals or stabilizers, you want to make sure that everything you're using is on the camera. So that means batteries are on, lens caps are off, all that fun stuff. If you change the weight after you've balanced it, guess what you're going to have to do again? You're going to have to balance it again. Keep in mind too, the gimbal only supports 6.6 pounds, so make sure your camera isn't too thick for this gimbal. Once that's all set, we're going to mount the quick release plate onto the camera and then slide the whole setup onto the gimbal. Alright, we are just crushing it right now, so we're going to start balancing, and we're going to look at the tilt or pitch axis, depending on how you look at it. You want to make sure that the tilt axis is unlocked. I leave all the other axes locked while I'm balancing this though, this way the gimbal doesn't move around. And the first thing we're going to do is make sure that the camera isn't dipping forwards or backwards. The general rule here is whatever direction it's tipping in, you want to counterbalance it by sliding the camera in the opposite direction. So if it dips forward, you pull the camera back. If it dips backwards, you push the camera forward. Once you're good, we'll lock this knob here and you're good to move on. The next thing we'll do is point the camera straight up at the ceiling, or the sky if you're outside, I guess. You want the camera to stay still there without you holding it, so if it swings down forward, then your balance is off. We can adjust this axis by loosening this knob and raising and lowering the camera. If the camera is flopping forward, that means we have to raise it up. If it's falling backwards towards the rear of the gimbal, then we have to push it down. Once you're balanced here, we can just recheck and make sure the camera isn't sliding forward or backwards anymore, as sometimes when you adjust this part of the tilt axis, the balance changes slightly. Once the camera isn't moving around, we can lock this axis because it is good to go. Now we're going to move on to the roll axis, so make sure that that one's unlocked and let it go. When you remove your hand, if the camera dips to either the left or the right, you know that that axis is not balanced. To get this balanced, we're going to loosen up this knob down here and slide the camera in the opposite direction. So if the camera's dipping to the left, we're going to slide the camera to the right. If it's dipping to the right, then we'll move the camera to the left. The opposite motion will counterbalance it. Once you let go and the camera doesn't move, it almost looks like the thing's powered on, you're good to go and you can re-lock the roll axis. And finally, we're going to move on to the pan axis. Now the easiest way to balance this one, in my opinion, is to grab the gimbal and tilt it on a 45-degree angle. The gimbal will spin. This is DJI's method and I find it pretty simple to do. All you have to do is loosen up the pan axis and slide the whole gimbal forward or backwards to counterbalance the spin. Once it stays still when you tilt the gimbal on a 45-degree angle, you're good to go. You can tighten that knob and unlock all the axes, then power up the gimbal, and there you go, you're balanced. Just don't be like me and forget to put the batteries in. It's probably good to put those in at the beginning so that you don't have to weirdly hold your gimbal on its side like that. But yeah, that's how it works. It's really simple, and once you get it going and you practice it a few times, it'll be second nature. Once again, I really do think this is meant for smaller gimbals like the Sony mirrorless cameras. The Canon 6D Mark II does work on there, but it just doesn't feel as intuitive as the smaller cameras. So anyway, there's going to be more information on that coming up, and I'm also going to compare it with the DJI Ronin S, which recently saw a price decrease, so that's kind of interesting. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Sorry I am sick and I sound sound like an ass, but there you go. Sweet Lou photography does not stop even if I feel crappy. Okay, well, go forth and have steady camera motions. Bye.